Family. Welcome back to the Dungeon Practical Purpose Podcast. All right, it's your boy. Man, go on and share, subscribe. Go on and send this out um, to some people. We're gonna be talking about stewardship today. I know that's a term that often is used to talk about money, but we're not really even going to talk about money. But we're going to talk about stewardship. Let me give a shout out to my brother. My shout out to my brother Donald Boyd, DW Boyd Realty, doing this thing, man. This is a guy in Columbia, South Carolina. If you need help purchasing a home, buying a home, selling a home, any type of property, reach out to DW Boyd Realty. He's doing his thing, and I like to on the show. I like to always highlight people who are doing positive things in our community. And so I wanted to shout him out. Shout out to my brothers, my Lion brothers, New Chi Chapter 586 Fraternity Incorporated. It's our 17th anniversary. And I'm not really huge and big on fraternities and sororities and things like that, of things of that nature. However, I had the unique pleasure of pledging with five brothers that we've really helped each other throughout the course of our lives these last 17 years. So I wanted to shout them out as well. Listen, I'm reading a book. It's a book recommended to me. It's called Tiny Habits by Dr. BJ Fogg. And the book, I believe, is very important. And I read something in it this morning that talked about the fact that if you want to make changes in your life, it doesn't happen in grand and big steps. It's just tiny habits that you change daily. And those tiny habits help you to make progressive steps in the right direction in your life. And so that's a book. I always like to highlight people who I think are doing great things in our community, but I also like to give you reading. I had a leader say to me before, years ago, he said to me, "What are you reading?" And I couldn't answer that question. And he said, if you are a leader, if you are a person who is about becoming better, then you have to be a reader. You have to always be reading something. So I try to also highlight for us on the show books that can help us grow. All right. So the book I'm reading right now is called Tiny Habits. It's a good book. And I think it'll help you in your life become better at whatever it is that you're trying to do. All right. So go ahead, share this out. Let's get some more people in. Share this out. Today, we're going to be talking about stewardship. We're going to be talking about stewardship. I don't have a question of the day. We're not doing that because I wanted to just get right to it and not be on for a long time. But we're just talking about stewardship and the importance of it tonight. We're going to be talking about how you can become a good steward in whatever capacity you serve, in whatever capacity you lead, in whatever capacity you're responsible for. There is an expectation for you to steward things well. All right, there's an expectation for you to steward things well. So we're going to talk about stewardship. Go on and share this out. Send the link out to as many people as you can. Let them know we're in the dungeon in the next minute or so, and we're going to be talking about stewardship. Stay tuned.
1, 2. Yeah. 1, 2. We living life with a practical purpose, making every day worth it. Live from the dungeon, we go deeper than the surface, leading with wisdom from the street to the churches. Searching, what seeking you find? We speaking right to your mind. The sun ain't fighting to shine, no diamonds either. Fly hit the Jews and turn fools to believers. Steady making moves and teaching truth to the leaders. Use all these tools just so you can supersede us as hell. Yeah. Say 1, 2. Yeah. Say 1, 2. Yeah.
Can with what you have. Never see a U-Haul behind a hearse. You can't take it with you. And be it money, talent, patience, love, whatever your gift is, You can't take it with you. So what are you going to do with it when you're here? Who have you lifted up? Who have you made better? Who have you helped out? Not how much do you have, but what you have. Some people have love, some have patience, some have money, some have fame. Whatever your talent is, we all have something. Help your fellow man. At the end of the day, none of us are perfect, none of us are angels, but you do the best you can with what you have. Never.
Let's talk about stewardship. Let's talk about, that was the GOAT right there. That was the GOAT, Denzel Washington. If you think anybody is a better actor than Denzel Washington, shame on you. Shame on you. Denzel is the GOAT. Listen, my dog is outside. I just put my dog out. So if you hear the dog barking, we'll be all right. All right, so let's talk about stewardship. What's up, Pecan Tan? Let's talk about stewardship. What is stewardship? Stewardship, I'm going to give you a few definitions, but the job of supervising and taking care of something. That's stewardship, right? And when we always talk about it, we always talk about it from the lens of money. And that's a problem. Because we've been gifted and given so much more in our lives than just money to steward. And one thing about this show, this podcast, is I don't just get on here and talk. I take time to try to study what it is that I'm talking about. And as I looked over my own life this week specifically, I realized that I wasn't as good of a steward as I thought I was. As I began to put things in perspective, put things in their proper places in my life, I realized that I'm not as good of a steward of what I've been given than I thought I was. The second part of that definition says management of something entrusted to one's care. That's powerful. Here's why. Because so often I thought about stewardship from the standpoint is I own something, and because I own it, I need to take care of it. But historically speaking, if you go back through the annals of time, what you'll find is that stewards managed the master's good. They managed what the master gave them. They didn't own it. And so that perspective changed how I looked at stewardship. Listen, my job is to manage what I've been given. My job is to manage what I've been entrusted with. And that has a few implications. One implication is there was someone who entrusted me with what I need to manage. Right? I didn't get it on my own. And so often, especially in leadership circles, we tend to think that we are the end all be all and we get our success, we get our resources on our own, but you have been entrusted with the opportunity to steward something. You've been entrusted with the opportunity to steward something. That means someone thought enough of you or enough of your ability to give you something to steward. And so when you think about stewardship, you have to take it out of the lens of just money, right? Out of the lens of just finances. And you have to put it in the lens so broad because you are entrusted with not just finances, you're entrusted with relationships, you're entrusted with parenthood. You're entrusted with leading on your job. You are entrusted with those people that you manage and that you lead, those systems that you manage at your job or wherever you are. You're entrusted with certain things. And so because you are entrusted with it, it's more than just money. It's more than just finances. Like, how are you stewarding the relationships in your life? Right? That's called relational intelligence. Like, are your relationships in the right place? Do you have people positioned in the right place in your life to help you become or continue that process of becoming a good steward? Listen, stewardship is leaving something better than you found it. I'm going to say that again. Stewardship is leaving something better than you found it. Right. So when you meet people, are they a better person because they ran into you? When in your relationships, are your friends better friends because they're in connection with you? In your leadership capacity, no matter where it is or what you're doing, are the people that you serve as a leader in a better position? Are they better off because you are stewarding them? Stewardship is leaving something better than it was when you found it. I remember when we were growing up, my mom and daddy would always instill that in us. Leave this better than it was when you found it. Clean it up. Fix it up. There was some consequences to not doing it. But you had to leave things better than it was. That was the principle. And that was, they may not have known it, but that was a principle of stewardship. Are your children better off because you're their father, because you're their mother? All right. Leaving things better than it was when you found it. Listen, stewardship is about taking care of the present moment so that it can take care of you in the future. Let me say that again. Stewardship is about taking care of the present moment so that it can take care of you in the future. If you are a good steward, if you're accountable, if you're responsible, we're going to get to those concepts. But if you are a good steward, you think about seizing the moment. What I think it was Napoleon that said carpe diem, meaning seize the moment, right? And because I seize the moment, I recognize that I'm going to eventually reap what I have already sown. Stewardship is about that. But if you only relegate that to finances, you're making it so small. It's about your relational intelligence as well. It's about how you're leading on your job. It's about how you're doing things in your family. All of that is stewardship. Listen, good leadership is good stewardship. Good leaders are good stewards because they recognize that the people that I'm leading, I'm responsible for their growth. I've got to put them in position to grow. Right now, they have a part to play in that, right? I'm not saying you're totally responsible for someone else's development, but what I am saying is you are responsible for putting them in the position to develop. Right? If you're a great leader, if you're a good leader, you are a steward. And before I really kind of started studying this, I never looked at it from that perspective. As a good leader, I have to be a good steward of the people that have been entrusted to me. Because just like the money has been entrusted to me, just like the resources have been entrusted to me, so have people been entrusted to me. And so I have to make sure I'm putting them in the best position to be successful. They should be better after they've worked with me than they were before. That's good stewardship. John C. Maxwell, a leadership guru that everybody knows, he says this: the true measure of a steward is how well they take care of what is entrusted to them. The true measure of a steward is how well they take care of what has been entrusted to them. And here's the critical piece in that. I'm going to say it over and over. People have also been entrusted to you. And so the way you manage, the way you lead, the way you deal with, the way you treat people is a part of being a good steward. Listen, I know I'm going fast. I know I'm running. I'm ripping and running because I don't want to be on too long, but I want this concept to kind of sink in with us, that the mere fact that if you have any leadership capacity or ability, it is because someone thought enough of you to give it to you. And that's critical. You don't own it. You don't own it. You have been entrusted with it. And we're going to get to that when we look at the second half of the show and we look at the biblical piece of this thing. You've been entrusted with whatever it is you have. That's powerful. You've been entrusted with it. Listen, so we've established that a good steward is one that understands that they've been gifted and entrusted with something or someone. We've established the fact that stewardship, good leadership is good stewardship. So let's look at what good stewards do and what good stewards understand. This is the practical side of this. What do good stewards do and what do good stewards understand? First and foremost, good stewards understand accountability. They understand accountability. What does that mean? They understand that at the end of this thing, I'm going to be held accountable for the results. Let me say that again. A good steward understands that at the end of whatever this is, this leadership position, this family position, this relationship, this financial blessing, whatever that might be, I'm going to be held accountable afterwards for the results. We don't always think about that in the moment. In fact, that's the most difficult thing to really understand is in the moment, it's hard to really realize that I'm going to be held accountable in the end for the results. Oftentimes we get sidetracked and we don't think about accountability. See, accountability comes when the results come. Are you willing to be held accountable for what you have been gifted? Are you willing to be held accountable for what you have been entrusted with? Right? So you got a new job, you got a new position, you got some new money, right? You got some new relationships. Are you willing at the end of that thing, are you willing to be held accountable for what you did with it? That's critical and that's key. Accountability is not the same as responsibility. I'm gonna get to that, but accountability comes once the results come. You hold yourself and others hold you accountable when the results come. Listen, the second thing that good stewards understand and do is they understand responsibility. See, responsibility is what I'm doing in the process. That's going to bring me to accountability. Responsibility is what I'm doing every day. What am I doing with what I have? Right? Like what Denzel said in the clip. What are you doing with what you have? Right? I remember I spoke to a men's group. This is probably 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, about 3 or 4 years ago now. And I talked to them about that one statement that God made to Moses when he was getting ready to part the Red Sea. He said, "What's in your hand?" Right? He didn't ask him any deep question. He said, "What is that? What is that you have? What are you doing with what I gave you?" And you know what? You're not going to be held accountable or responsible for what you hadn't been given. You're not going to be held responsible for what someone else has. You're going to be held responsible and accountable for what has been entrusted to you. You're going to have to answer to that. Right. And so I asked that question again as we talk about accountability and responsibility. Are people around you better off because they know you? Are people around you better off because of your leadership ability or your stewardship ability? Third thing that good stewards do, third thing that good stewards understand is they understand that the reward is in the future. Let me say that again. Good stewards understand that their reward is future tense. And I know I'm going fast. But good stewards understand that I may not see the impact of what I'm doing right now, but it's going to multiply and eventually I'll be rewarded for what I'm doing. Right? Old people, my grandma and old people, you say, put your time in because payday coming after a while, right? It's your future. The reward is in the future. That's that whole principle of what people call karma and people call reaping what you sow. That means what I'm doing now, there is going to be a reward later for it. But the key to stewardship is understanding that once the reward comes, I still have to steward the reward too. And so the process of good stewardship never stops. Anything I'm entrusted with in the present, in the future, I have to steward well. Good stewards, number 4, keep the right perspective. They keep the right perspective. Have you ever met a leader who was so tunnel vision that they couldn't see the big picture? That's a scary thing in leadership. It's a scary thing to not be able to see the big picture. And oftentimes it's natural that we don't see it until it's really shown to us. But leaders and good stewards and good leaders keep the right perspective. They keep the right perspective. Listen, Principal Kafele says, is your school, he's in education. He says, is your school better because you lead it? Right? Right. That's the right perspective is everybody that comes in contact with me should be better off because they came in contact with me. That's good stewardship. My money should be better because I've been entrusted with it. Right? I'm stewarding well what I have, and I'm keeping the perspective that it's not mine. I'm stewarding it for the master. I'm stewarding it for someone else. PK and Tan asked a question. So stewardship can be anything we are entrusted with. Anything that you are entrusted with, you have the responsibility to steward well. Right? I'm gonna get to that question when we get to our biblical part of the show. But I don't want to get ahead of myself because you always do this. With the blessing, right? With the entrusting of something to you comes the capacity to steward it well. The capacity comes with that, right? It comes with that, and we're gonna get to that. Stop messing with me. My boy, Caitlin, what's up, man? Good to see you. Listen, the fifth thing about stewardship is stewardship requires cultivation. Stewardship requires cultivation. Like, how many gifts have you been entrusted with that you've buried? How many gifts do you have that you hadn't put on display? See, we're so talented, we're so gifted in things. We have so many things in our lives that we hide and we don't cultivate it to make it better. Yeah, you can sing, but that don't mean you don't need to get better. That don't mean you don't need to work hard to cultivate it. And if you are a good steward, you're going to cultivate what you have. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to it, but you've got to cultivate it. Oh, man, my mentor, Dr. Coltrane. That's my mentor, man. This is one of the greatest. This is one of the greatest leaders, school leaders that I've ever seen in my life. Greatest. Understands perspective. The thing about Dr. Coltrane, and I don't want to go and preach a sermon on Dr. Coltrane, but the thing about Dr. Coltrane is she is one that will take what you have and take it to the next level. She's going to challenge you. And that's why I stay in contact with her. That's why I love her. She will take whatever it is to the next level. And if you are a good student, you are responsible. If you're a good steward, you are responsible for taking what you have to the next level. Listen, that's the sixth thing that good stewards understand, and it's a kingdom principle, is stewardship requires multiplication. It's multiplication. It's not addition. It's multiplication. When I have something and I steward it well, it should multiply in my life. Conversely, if I have something and I don't steward it well, I begin to lose it. Right? We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. But when you think about your time, when you steward your time well, what you'll notice is you incrementally get more time. Right? And when you begin to steward it well, it works the same way with money. When you steward your money well, somehow it's just a kingdom principle. It begins to multiply. And I don't want to get to the spiritual side of this, but as you steward things well with the right perspective, with the right spirit, then the master supernaturally makes it become not just enough, but he makes it become more than enough. And I don't want to get to that. The seventh thing, I wrote down faithfulness or consistency. Good stewards are consistent. Good stewards don't waver. They get weak. They get tired, right? But they stay consistent. That's what Paul said. I think it's in Colossians. He said, don't get tired of doing the right thing. Because in due season, the reward is in the future. You're going to reap, right? So good stewards are not only faithful, they're consistent. And that's where his book comes in. That's where his book, Tiny Habits, come in. Because it's not about one big thing. It's about small habits, small consistencies that lead us in our lives to being good stewards? What if PK Tan says, what if we don't know the gifts? That's a good question. And that's why reflection, PK and 10, is critical in our lives, right? Because when you reflect on what you have, then you realize, you remember, you did it again. James says all good gifts, all good and perfect gifts come from above, right? So if you look at your life and you look at what's good in your life, what happened in your life, what things that you do well in your life, then you realize that those things were given to you. They were gifts. Maybe they were given to you over time. Maybe they were given to you at birth. Some people are naturally gifted in certain things, right? And so you have to find the gift, know what the gift is, then you begin to cultivate the gift. For example, I believe that one of my gifts is teaching, not just teaching one specific thing. I just think that I've been gifted with the ability to teach. And so one thing that I do is I find time in areas in every part of my life to teach, because that's how I cultivate the gift, right? So I had to discover it, then I had to cultivate it. In the spiritual sense, I think it was Peter said, or Paul said to Timothy, stir up the gift. Meaning once you find it, you got to cultivate it. You got to work it. Making me get ahead of myself. Stop. PK and 10, don't put nothing else in the chat. You got to work it. Listen, the last thing that good stewards do or understand is they understand that they are responsible for using their blessing or their gift, whatever it may be, to benefit other people. Good stewards recognize that. Good stewards recognize I'm not good just for me. It's not enough for me to be stable. It's not enough just for me to be great. It's not enough just for me to recognize my gifting, my talents, my abilities. It's not enough. I have a responsibility to ensure that I impact positively as many people as I can with what I've been given. And that's the critical part of leadership. What she said, preach. I ain't preaching. What am I doing with what I have, and how is it impacting other people? How is it impacting other people? Because you've got to recognize that whatever it is you have, whatever it is you've been blessed with, whatever it is you've been gifted with, you not only have the responsibility to steward it well, you have the responsibility to cultivate it. You have the responsibility to multiply it, but you also have the responsibility to have a positive impact on other people. And that question that Principal Kafele asked is so critical. Is my school better because I lead it? Or is your family better because you lead it? Are people better because you're a good steward? Are people better because you work your gift? See, the thing about gifts, without getting into it too much, gifts are not given to us for our benefit only. Gifts are given to us for us to use them to benefit other people. Listen, my daughter will tell you that the best gift they can give me, my kids can give me, is peace. She'll tell you that. But it's not enough for me to just have peace. Once I have peace, I should be able to positively impact everybody in the house. Right? So whatever gift you have, whatever gift that you're cultivating and multiplying, right, that gift should benefit the people in your sphere of influence. And with that responsibility comes also the realization that your gift ain't for everybody. I learned that from Dr. Coltrane. Your style ain't for everybody. Your gift is not for everybody. Your impact, your influence is not for everybody. But you have to understand that I'm going to impact the people I'm called to impact with the gift that I have while I can do it. And that's good stewardship. That's good stewardship. Understanding the power of impact. Positive impact. One of my old principals from high school, I say old, he's not even old, but one of my former principals, he said sometimes you can't just say impact because impact can be positive or negative. So he says you always have a positive impact on people. And the way you do that is through working the gift that you have, right? So we've established on the practical side, we've established that stewardship is managing something that has been entrusted in our care. We've established that it's about accountability, responsibility. It's about reaping and sowing. It's about perspective, cultivation, consistency, and multiplication. Right? We've established that with stewardship. So I want you to think in the practical sense before we move on to the biblical side of it. In the practical sense, what is it that you have that you aren't stewarding well? Because whenever you get to church, they're gonna tell you stewardship is all about paying tithes and offering. That's not it. You've got people who pay tithes every Sunday that's not good stewards. Okay. Okay. There are people who give offering every Sunday that's not good stewards. It's not about just the financial piece. What are you stewarding your time well? Are you stewarding your relational intelligence well? Are you stewarding your job well? Stop. You're asking for better. You're asking for more, but are you stewarding what you have? You want more money on your job. You want a different job, but you're not blooming there, right? Have you given it your all where you are as a good steward? Or are you lazy? Because we'll see in the text a little later, laziness in the kingdom is equal to wickedness. So are you lazy with what you have? Or are you stirring it up and working it? Are you stirring it up? Are you working it? So on the Practical Purpose podcast, we try to give you, and I don't have much longer. We try to give you not only the practical side of whatever the concept is, which is today's stewardship. We try to give you a firm foundation. And I know that everybody who watches Practical Purpose podcast is not necessarily Christian, but the firm foundation that I believe all of us can benefit from is the Bible. So I try to go into the text. I'm not a Bible teacher, but I try to go into the text to find the principle and pull out or extrapolate some of the same concepts wherever it may be in the Bible. Right? So whenever my boy, man, this listen, I was about to say this kid, he's not a kid anymore, man. I taught him, I think, in 7th grade. Capelin, 7th grade. Talented, gifted. And you see what he put up on the screen? He said he's stirring it up. That's what I'm talking about. Stir that thing up, man. All right? So as we look at the biblical side of this thing, I don't want you to check out because you need a firm foundation. It can't just be Dr. Williams talking in the dungeon about stewardship. Let me give it to you in the Bible, because that way you know it's God breathed, it's God given, it's foundation. And so in the book of Matthew, it's a famous story. I'm gonna paraphrase it, but I'm also gonna read it because I know y'all ain't read your Bible today, so I'll read it to you too. But I'm gonna paraphrase. It's the story of the talents. We've all heard about this story. A master leaves, goes on a trip. He doesn't say when he's coming back, right? And he leaves 3 of his servants with these talents, right? He leaves one with 5, another one I think with 5, and then another one he leaves with 1, right? And he leaves them with these talents, and he doesn't tell them when he's returning, right? And when he comes back, he holds them accountable for what they did with what he gave them. Right. And so before I read the text, it's critical to understand a few things. First, the parable is about the kingdom. It says that in the book of Matthew, chapter 25, that it's about the kingdom. It's about how God rules on the earth through us. If we are to operate properly in the kingdom, we got to understand this parable. You've got to understand good stewardship. All right. Second thing that is critical before I read it that you understand is I hope I get the word right. It's an eschatological text. That means it's not just about what the story that he's telling at the time. It deals with eschatology. Eschatology is the study of the last days, right? It's dealing with that. So what he's really saying, the overall premise is, I've given you some things, and when I come back, I want to see what you did with them. Right? That's the premise of the whole parable. So let's read it because I know you ain't, it's a good bit of reading. I'll read fast, but I know you ain't read your Bible. So here it is. Starting at verse 26. Matthew 14. I said 25. I don't know what I'm talking about. But when the disciples saw him walking, I pulled the wrong text. I ain't even gonna read it. I got the wrong text up there. Don't worry. I paraphrased it for you. So it's Matthew 25, 14 through 30. And it's the story of the talents. And it's interesting because I stumped my daddy with this, and I know he's watching. We always associate the servants with the stewardship. And they are. There are 3 servants in the text. 2 of the servants are good stewards. Why? Because they multiply what the master gives them when he returns. They multiply. But there's one servant who buries the money, the talent, and he gives the master back exactly what the master gave him. What are you giving to people? Are you giving people everything you got, or are you just giving them enough? Are you returning to people what the energy they give you, or are you giving them more so that they can be better at what they're doing? Right? The critical piece in the story is that we have always associated the 2 servants with being good stewards, but there are 3 good stewards in the text. The master was a good steward because the master, the text says, he gave them money, he gave them talents based off of their ability. The master gave them talent based off of their ability. What does that mean? If you're a leader, if you're a good steward, then you're watching the ability of those people that you're stewarding, that you're leading, in order to know what capacity they have to do something with what you give them. If you're a good leader, if you're a good steward, you are watching the capacity and the ability of the people who are following you. And so you give them what they can handle. And it says that the master gave them according to their ability. It's another interesting part in the text here. It says that when the master came back, he held them accountable, but nowhere in the text did the master give them any instructions. The master didn't say, I'm going to give you these talents and I want you to multiply it. He didn't tell them. And that's how I know he was a good steward, because anytime that you don't give them the instruction, it's because you've modeled it for them. I'm going to say that again. He didn't give them instruction because he had already modeled it for them. The master had expectation without instruction because he had already modeled good stewardship. So in that text, Matthew 25, I'm sorry I didn't read it. I thought I had it pulled up, but I didn't. In that text, Matthew 25, 14 through 30, we see 3 key principles, and then I'm done. 3 key principles of stewardship in the text. Here's the first thing. Stewardship is expected according to your ability. Let me say that again. Stewardship is expected according to your ability. God expects us to steward what he gave us. It's according to our ability. Listen, he gave one servant 5, he gave another servant 5, and he gave another one 1 according to their ability. God knows what you are capable of. And so when he entrusts us with gifts, with talents, with abilities, he also sends with it the capacity to steward it. So you don't have an excuse. If he blessed you with a son, with a daughter, he gave you the capacity to steward them well. If he blessed you with a car, with a house, he gave you the capacity to steward it well. It comes along with the gifting. If you're a good leader, you have the capacity to be a good leader and to cultivate your leadership. Here's another key point in there. You can't compare your giftings to other people. See, nowhere in the text did it say that the three servants talked to each other about what they were doing. They didn't compare themselves to one another. We get in sticky places as leaders, as good stewards, when we start to compare ourselves to other people. You haven't been entrusted with what other people have been entrusted with. Therefore, you're not responsible for having the capacity that other people have. You're not responsible for it. If I tried to be as good of a leader, as great of a leader as my mentor, Dr. Coltrane, I'd be disappointed every day because I hadn't been entrusted with that capacity yet. And so as I work what I have, I understand that my working of what I have is based off of the capacity that I've been given. Jacqueline Wallace says, comparison is one way to lose sight of your gift and abilities. Right. And we're in a society that compares a lot. That's what all that scrolling on social media, that's what it does. It makes you compare your relationship to somebody else, your body to somebody else, your gifts to somebody else. Right? It causes you to lose sight of what's going on. Miss Gaither. Oh man, I miss Miss Gaither. Thank you for clarifying that biblical story. You made my day. I appreciate it. I ain't finished yet though. I got something else for you. Oh, all right. So listen to this. God is strategic and masterful in what he gives us to steward. Ooh. He's strategic. He's masterful. See, the master was a good steward. The master knew what to give each one of them. And he knew what was going to happen. I can tell you, let me not get ahead of myself. He knew what was going to happen. And he knew it because he was also a good steward. Here's the second key part in the text. Go back and read it. Matthew 25:14-30. Good stewards are expected to expose and multiply. The third servant said that he hid what he should have exposed. The third servant hid what he should have exposed. He said that, Master, when the master came back, he said, I took what you gave me and I buried it because I was afraid of you. We talked about fear. If you didn't see us talk about fear management, go check that one out. He said, I was afraid, so I buried what you gave me. How many gifts have you been given that you are currently burying? You can't cultivate, you can't multiply what you're afraid to expose. The master said, if you would have just took the one to the bank, I would at least make some interest off of it. But he said, you lazy. Because you're hiding what you should be exposing. Work your gifts while glorifying God at the same time. Listen, your gift is entrusted to you. It's something that's been given to you. So if it's been given to you, then you have not only the capacity, you have the responsibility to work it and the responsibility to glorify the person who gave it to you. You didn't get it on your own. And that's a key, that's critical in leadership. Dr. Coltrane says the art of comparison is dangerous. Don't fall in the trap. We do so often. Right. And oftentimes, Doc, I think we fall into the trap because of the nature of society or just how we live. We fall in. We're always ranking. We're always comparing. We're always contrasting without having the full stories. Right. And we kind of talked about that on the education podcast a couple weeks ago. Listen, is your gift having a positive impact on others? Is it having a positive impact? The servants, here's a key point. And that's why I said this is an eschatological text. The servants didn't know when the master was coming back. He had no clue. And so if you were to close your eyes right now for the last time, did you cultivate what you were given? Because you're going to have to stand and give an account for what you did with what you have. And so do you leave it on the floor like we say in sports? Do you leave it on the field every time you get out there? So that if you close your eyes right now, you're okay with the results that you've got because you left it all out there. Listen, the last point, because I'm running out. The last point is the master took the servant who he called wicked, the last one who took one and buried it. Listen to this. He took that one from him and he gave it to one of the good stewards. Whatever you mismanage, you lose. Let me say that again. Whatever you mismanage, you lose. And I'm not talking about just one-time mismanagement. When I say mismanage, whatever you consistently mismanage in your life, you eventually lose. Like think about how you manage your time. When you mismanage your time, there's never enough. When you mismanage your time, you are always looking, or you always feel like you hadn't accomplished enough. Right? Whatever you mismanage your money. And then check your bank account. Whatever you mismanage, you will eventually lose. Sam, whatever you mismanage, you lose. And it was given to the one who manages well. Yeah, that's why I'm mad I didn't pull up the text. I thought I had it. He took it from the one who mismanaged it and gave it to the one who managed it. Right? So as a good stewards, Tiny, good stewards, Sam, are productive. Good stewards are productive. Like they don't waste. They are producers. What are you producing with the gift you've been given? What are you producing? Like when in my field in leadership, in school leadership, I look at so many leaders who under their tutelage have produced so many other leaders. They're all not principals, but they're leaders and good leaders. Like you should be producing something if you're a good steward. You should be producing fruit, not just words, not just lip service. Good stewards produce on a high level. The two that were good stewards, what did they do? They took 5 and they made 10. They doubled, they multiplied what they had. The one that wasn't a good steward, but he still was a servant, he just wasn't a good steward, he buried what he should have exposed. And because of that, he gave the master back exactly what the master gave him. What that tells me is a few things, but here's one thing that just came to my mind, is that the master has given us the ability to take what he gave us and make it more. What does that mean? It's like a seed, right? He don't give you the whole tree. He just give you the seed. But if you cultivate the seed, you get a tree. And from that tree, you get whatever fruit. You get multiple fruit from that tree, but all he gave you was a seed. That tells me that we are responsible for taking the little things, multiplying them, cultivating them, watering them, getting the ground ready to receive them, and making it more than what we were given. That's the essence of the story. Good stewards are not lazy. Listen to what he said to him. He said, "You lazy servant." He said, "You lazy servant. You lazy and wicked." So he equated wickedness with laziness. Have you ever met somebody that's just lazy? They want everything, but they're not willing to do anything. Or maybe they're willing to do the bare minimum, but they don't want the bare minimum in return. Right? You can't be lazy, because in the kingdom, laziness is equated to wickedness. And so good stewards are not lazy. He called the man lazy. and Furthermore, he threw him out into the outer darkness with weeping and gnashing of teeth because he returned to him exactly what he gave. He didn't return to him more. But the critical piece in it is that he gave it according to his ability. He only gave him one because he knew he was lazy. And so what you've been entrusted with in your life, whatever gifts that may be, whatever talent that may be, whatever whatever finances that may be, whatever responsibilities that may be, you're entrusted with that because the master knows what your ability level is. And he gives you the gift. He entrusts the gift to you, and he expects you to cultivate the gift. And as you cultivate the gift, then he knows you can handle more. And that's the principle of stewardship. That's the principle of good stewardship. So here's your homework, here's your closure. What areas in your life do you need to steward better? Miss Hines. So I see laziness. Now she definitely ain't lazy. This lady right here ain't lazy, boy. I promise you. She was out working a lot of people when I worked with her, including me sometimes. Well, including me a lot of times. What in your life do you need to steward better? Is it your relationships? Is it your money? Because we always think about it in the realm of finances. Maybe you got some relationships you need to steward better. Maybe people are not better because of you. Maybe they're getting better in spite of you. And if that's true, you got to look yourself in that proverbial mirror and say, I got to reflect on who I am, what I'm doing. I've been given this, but I hadn't multiplied this. I'm just holding it. I'm burying it. I'm putting it in the ground. And because I'm putting it in the ground, it's not able to cultivate. I'm not able to cultivate it to make it more than what it should be. Take what you've been given and cultivate it. Work it. Whatever that is in your life. Listen. Appreciate you coming to the dungeon at 3:00 on a Saturday. Right? We went 52 minutes. That's a little longer than I wanted to go. But I hope something that was said helps you. And what I want you to do is just share it. Share it with somebody else. Share it with somebody else. That there was something here that could help you become a better steward, because at the end of the day, you're going to be held responsible and accountable with what you've been gifted, what you've been entrusted with in every area. That's not just leadership. In every area of your life, you're going to have to be responsible and accountable for what has been entrusted to you. And when you understand those principles of stewardship, then you can understand also how to move your life in whatever capacity, whatever area, to the next level. How can I do it? Listen, go back and read Matthew 25, 14 through 30. And study and understand that if I'm going to be a good leader, if I'm going to be a good person, then I need to become a good steward of my time, of my money, of my relationships. All right. So share this out with as many people as you possibly can. I appreciate y'all coming to the dungeon. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Have a good Thanksgiving. Remember the purpose of it, of this time, or the concept of Thanksgiving, right? You see it right there. Be thankful, right? Be thankful, because like I tell people every day, just like it could be better, it could sure enough be a lot worse than it really is. Man, I appreciate y'all coming to the dungeon. Stay tuned for the next time we'll be on. Y'all take care. Enjoy the podcast? Listen, like, share, and subscribe. Go to YouTube, Basic Wisdom with Dr. Brian Williams, and subscribe to the channel so that you will know anytime something else is coming out. Did you know that Basic Wisdom is comprised of 3 different components? We do practical life teaching. That's what you see on the Practical Purpose podcast. We do professional development. We come out and we train people. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. Doesn't matter what type of organization. We come out and we do professional development. And listen, if you want to go to the next level in any area of your life, you need a coach. We do leadership coaching. in at Basic Wisdom. Go to the website, basicwisdomllc.com. Tap in, because it's something there that can bless you.